Welcome to the Colloquy, where we discuss relationships, life, culture, and everything else in between.
Tonight, we have my brother, Clyde Oliver, my brother in battle and everything else. I love this guy. He's an author, Air Force veteran, soon to be retired, podcaster,
He's
father,
a two-time author.
Yes, father, husband. He's pretty much the full package. This guy can talk about anything at any time and anywhere. So be prepared to discuss some really deep topics.
Let's go.
Maybe we surprise you a little bit, some of the things we discuss tonight. So without further ado, we're going to bring Clyde to the stage. What's up, Doc?
Hey, man, that's a lot of
welcome.
Hey, listen, that intro is crazy. Wait a minute. Let me make sure I got to put the right person. Okay.
Yeah, that's you. That's you.
All right, okay. I'm in. I'm ready. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yes. Thank you, man. Well, I've known Clyde for, it's almost 10 years now. I feel like I don't even know how long. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, officially, I think we talked a couple times before I got down here. So, officially, like 7-8 years.
7-8 years. Yeah. Wow. It feels like longer than that. Just like we just clicked immediately, you know. And Clyde's just one of those guys, just cool, man. Like you could talk to him about anything. And I don't know if I've ever seen him like truly. I've seen him upset, but I don't know if I've ever seen him mad. And that's different. There's a difference between those two.
That's saying something.
And and just great books, man. We'll talk about his book later, but I was there when he was conceptualizing his first book.
Wow.
And just to see the product that he put out, amazing. So Clyde, man, look, there's a lot going on out here in these streets, right? So I guess as of this recording today, they just raided Diddy's mansion. 2 mansions as of yesterday they raided the man's mansions, and like we're all in our 4th decade, so we all remember Diddy on stage with Murder Mace and Biggie and all, and like we're seeing all these people kind of just getting, I don't know, man. Nickelodeon, did you see the Nickelodeon documentary?
I haven't seen it, but I heard the wife was mentioning it, so I was like, "What happened with them?" Like, so I gotta check that out.
Like our whole childhood is a sham. It's a sham, man. And I don't know. It's like looking at Diddy and the way our culture is going, and even Black culture. We talk about that a lot, and there's so many things that we seem to be struggling with. Yeah. And a lot of our idols, I hate to say the word idols, but people do idolize these people, seem to be just kind of tripping up. So, in your opinion, and all your years of experience, like what are the biggest issues facing Black culture right now? Now, culture could be books, TV, media, whatever you want to throw out there.
Honestly, Marcus, I think it's too many people to imitate, right? So folks don't really have a good grounding of basis of who they are as people, whether that's from how they were raised or, broken homes and things we've talked about a bunch. So we look to the things that we subscribe to most, social media, TV, music, and those things become the driver. And I feel like what we're doing right now, we're just following the leader, right? Like every new rapper that comes out, he has a certain style, as they say, swag. And for a minute, that's what's hot.
Yep.
It's not. And then you're looking for the next. And like, I feel like as a culture as a whole, we struggle with identity. Who are you? You can like the music you like. You can, as you used softly, idolize these people, but you're still you, right?
Yeah.
You don't know who you is. That's crazy English there.
Makes sense to me.
Then you struggle with this, man. And I feel like the hardest part of this, honestly, is when people kind of trying to, like, you can have a simple conversation, like, you know what, like, what are the things that motivates you in life? And the first thing they're going to say is money, right? And without admitting to it, power.
Absolutely.
Lastly, they'll say, man, you know what? While I'm here, I just want to live. I just want to live the good life. But that doesn't have a description to it. It doesn't have any backing to it. It doesn't have, like, you haven't witnessed the good life in the sense of you might not have had all the money growing up, but you had a happy home. You had a sense of family. You understood what it was to be respectful. You understood what it was to work hard. Like, so your good life, though it's not, in the dollars and cents sense, but you're holistic, you're a whole person. It's a lot of people out here, there's a quarter of a person, eighth of a person, and they feel themselves with all this other stuff out here, man. That's what
I think you're absolutely right, man, because it seems to me, and you said money, power, and a good life, and all those things always point back to money nowadays. Everything's back to money. Nothing's really ever good enough. And we both, reading your book and knowing that you grew up in Indianapolis, not in the best part of town and things like that. You know, I'm from the backwoods of Mississippi, and you from PG County where they thugging up there. Like you said, people just half of people out here. And everybody thinks that they can get to this bag and get to this money, and they can have, oh, I gotta take trips for the gram, and I gotta do it. They don't understand what real, true living is, man. And having to lay your head on the pillow at night and have peace of mind is priceless. Because you and I both know through our talks that we both have had some sleepless nights. We both have had some hard times in this journey of becoming the men that we are. But now, you know, reaching that peace in life where you know who you are and you really love who you become. Man, you can't buy that. Well, you can. It's a price, but it's not a monetary price.
That's very true, Marcus. You know, for me, like you've asked me before, and we've talked about it freely. Like wealth to me is a combination of, you know, a sense of accomplishment, sense of purpose, and then ultimately, you know, your time that's allotted to that. So if you've put all your financial ducks in a row, and that doesn't make you rich, but you like, look, I'm about to be retired. I'm retired. You know what? My hard work and effort between my VA and my retirement check pays for my mortgage and my life. And I only took a job because I didn't want to be bored. To me, you're just as wealthy as a billionaire because your time now is yours.
Yes.
So the things that you've sacrificed, the times you've missed with family and all that, no, you can't get that back. But now you're like, I no longer have to reserve that. It's here. You know, and so that's wealth because you're controlling your sun up to sundown every day. That's so much power in that. But people don't see that, man. People miss that because they're chasing the bag, as you said.
Absolutely, man. What do you think, sweetie?
No, I'm listening to y'all. I'm vibing off y'all. Keep going.
I think I struggle with this too, Marcus. Like when you think about certain things, right? Like I feel like everybody's purpose is theirs, of course, but people don't value that purpose until it's too late. So what they end up doing is you're going through your life like trying things, right? And that's okay. When you're young, explore. But we talked today about a person. You can't be trying things at 35, 40, 45, and you still ain't really caught on to nothing. Like you got to look deep inside, and if you're religious, you pray on it. But like, what is my purpose? Show me, guide me. And you have to be real with what that purpose is. So when it makes itself present, you got to chase it. A lot of people like, oh, but that ain't the one I didn't pray for that. Let me pray for another one. Like, that, I don't think I want that purpose. That purpose don't make enough money, Marcus. Like, I got to do that purpose. Like, you know, and you're missing out on life because you're chasing something and it's not supposed to be for you. The Black culture, to me, really needs to slow down, man. And they have to recenter and refocus because what people always say is we don't help each other. I take that out. We don't build for one another. That's what we don't do.
That's it right there.
I like that.
And I want people to start building for each other. So it's like, I get it. Hey, you out here, you got your own independent business. I see what you're trying to do. I'm in a place that I can have a conversation. Let me build that bridge for you. Yes. You be who you are. You bring your product. This ain't got nothing to do with I'm gonna get off the top. But I know this person that can absolutely help y'all go to where y'all going. Let me build that bridge for you. That's what we need to do. Like help, because people think help is like, oh, here, I'm gonna throw you some money. Do something with it.
Yeah.
Get past that. Because in white culture, they build for each other. They do. They cross, man, they build for each other. Now they end up, you know, kind of cutting each other in the throat and all that, but they were all in the same room at one point. You know what I'm saying? We don't even get in the same room. We don't even get in the same room, man. And that's my problem. We don't build for each other. And so we got to start doing that on our own, in our own little spaces before we want Oprah and Jay-Z and all the billionaires to do something.
Right.
We can do it in our own spaces.
Yeah.
Let's start doing it in our own spaces and I see what we can become, man.
I like the point that you made earlier when you were talking about like when you're young, you have the room to explore. And it just made me think about like when you are doing things out of season or you've missed your window to do certain things, that exploration quickly turns to desperation. So then you're just throwing anything at the wall and you're hoping something will stick. And it's like, man, if you had really capitalized on the opportunity earlier on, you wouldn't have to do this desperate plea. Like, I think about like the music that we produce nowadays. We grew up in the 80s, 90s, hip hop and all that, kind of thinking about Diddy and all that. But it's like you listen to today's music and you listen to kind of the messages that's being put out there. And it makes me wonder, how much time are y'all actually spending creating? How much time are y'all actually spending, you know, discovering like, you know, something new, something different? Why we got to recycle everything? Why we got to do everything over again, but put a little twist on this and throw this beat on that? No, like where are the creators? And it's
No.
like we don't do that
And
anymore.
the ones that are, we don't hype them. The ones that are out there doing original stuff, we don't hype their stuff. We don't.
Yeah.
They're like indie underground and not really supported. So
you know, and it's the industry effect, right? And I'm not in that lane, so who am I to speak on it? But ultimately, what they do is they build the personas, and they just need the person to feel the persona. It's like wrestling, right? Like,
oh yeah, The Rock.
they're wrestling. Like, you know, when they used to come into, you know, McMahon's office, Vince McMahon, and he'd be like, okay, this is what I see for you. And then you either chose to go with that persona or go against it, and then you were out of the business. Well, I feel like they're like, you know what? I like that kid's voice, not actually his freestyle, not actually what he's saying. We can care less. I like that kid's voice. I like that kid's look. We can get a designer that can do this. We can get a producer that can do that. Somebody will write the lyrics, go in there and become something overnight. We'll front you a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden you stunt for the gram. And when your season's over, guess what? On to the next. You know, and we got to stop selling ourselves out like that, because we already sold the culture, and we always talk about trying to get it back, but you can't. Like, in a lot of ways, they have bought culture from us. It's almost like we've been like putting it on loan for them. Like, hey, we want more. Give me something else. And when they get enough of it, they're like, all right, you can stop producing for a while. You can stop creating. Then they'll come back. We need some more. You know, it's crazy.
We're just caricatures. We literally are just caricatures of whatever stereotype you want to play. You know, the heel, the you know, the promiscuous man, the promiscuous woman. You know, all these things. They're just caricatures.
And the other thing to that point is, like, we got to stop perpetuating our victim mentality in movies and TV shows. Like, it's like we love the drama. So I will basically sell myself to one of these crazy producers to be on a reality TV show to show my trauma in my victimized life. But I'm like, that's making dollars for somebody, and you're making yourself look like a absolute fool. So can we not do this? And like, but whatever, going back to the bag, I will sell myself for the bag because the bag makes me happy.
They absolutely know that. They absolutely know that.
Yeah. So, they play right into that. Absolutely. Why would I not? I mean, it's, you see, like, okay, look, here's the rules. You can't fight, but go all the way to the fight. Every show, man. Every show. It's crazy.
So with that, let's bring it down to the relationship level.
Okay.
Well, I have a question for you, Clyde. What would you tell your younger self about marriage prior to your first relationship?
Slow down, boy. This is honestly what I would say. So since this is strictly personal question to me, I would say, you know, my first marriage was conditioned based off of what was happening in my life. Situations arose. You know, I could say this, of course, but I had a girlfriend who got pregnant as I was leaving for the military. And ultimately, I knew my father raised me better than to leave my responsibility behind. But the conditions of what I've already raised my hand to and what I knew I had to go off and do wouldn't allow me to do that in a healthy way for my child by remaining single. You know how the military is. Like, that's your dependent, but until it's your dependent, you on your own, boss. You in the dorms, you making these little $2 checks. Like, you can barely, you know, fend for yourself. How I'm gonna take care of a child. So, you know, I allowed a couple things to like lead me. 2 and 2 equals 4. Okay, we've been together for a while. Hey, she got pregnant. Maybe that's for a reason. All these things, you know what? That equals marriage. Both of us was young. We kind of did it on impulse. We gave it a go, and it just didn't become what it was supposed to be. And you know, but we had some struggles, both in the marriage and once we first divorced. I'm happy to say, after all these years, our daughter's almost 21 years old. We are definitely copacetic. We are, I wouldn't call us best friends, but we are cordial. We can talk about things about our daughter's life without having the, you know, the fights we used to have. So all of that happened. So to answer your question, I would say telling myself about marriage at a younger age, it's, first off, know that that's something that's supposed to be a lifetime commitment. I'm saying that because I'm on round 2 of that. So ultimately, before you make that leap, you got to absolutely make sure you're ready to get into the water. And I wasn't. And that's for both times. Marcus knows as well. Both times I can't say that I was 100% ready to get in the water. And I know there's some risks there, but you should have a solid guide. The only people that I actually knew that were married truly were my grandparents. And they had they had a old marriage. So I'm talking like my grandpa, like my grandpa definitely never hit my grandma, nothing like that. But it was like one of them, how they had that friction.
Right.
Oh, you talking about that damn church, and then what you want for dinner? Like, this is shit, whatever you make, like that. That was what I knew marriage to be. My parents aren't married; they are common law. You know what I mean? And they are their own thing, and it's great. But it's like I didn't even have a whole blueprint of marriage. I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
I was just rolling the dice here, like. So, I would tell my younger self, slow it down, boy. Like, let's navigate this situation, these conditions before we just say, I think the best thing to do is to get married, because that's probably what I would tell myself.
That's a
really great answer.
That's a good answer especially for a younger man, and I think a lot of times people just, as marriage counselors and coaches, it's like, I like you, you like me, the sex is good, let's get married. It seems like this everybody's like default these days, because I'm like, they'll come to us 2-3 years in, like, did you get premarital? No, we just got married. Like, you didn't talk to anybody before? No, not really. We met with our pastor for like an hour. What are y'all doing out here in these streets? Like, man, this is who you marry is the biggest decision that you will ever make in life. And I would say who you marry, and 1B is who you have children with. Yeah. Probably two of the biggest decisions that you could ever make. And it seems like those are the two things that nobody really cares about.
Because one time, I'll never forget this. I was at a retreat. It was like one of those, I don't know, it was called prepaid legal. You ever heard of that scam? It was an absolute scam, like a scheme. It was absolute nonsense. But I was at this retreat and people just talking, and we way off subject when we're talking. And they like, yeah, I've been married. What is this? This is my 6th time. And I remember saying, what the fuck? I was like, wait.
Huh? You're not good at this, bro. You're not good at it. You're wrong.
Did this 6 times? Like, son, what? Now this guy was older, so I'm putting myself at 22, 23. This guy was he might have been 50, Marcus, 52.
6 marriages at 50. Come on, bro.
He was YT.
Yeah.
More of the story, I'm like, man, after 2, dog, like, hey, we swung and missed, man. It's time. It's time to try something else. Like, we just going, hey, because I'm just gonna get me a life partner and ride it out, because I don't know about this marriage thing after 2. Yeah, that's just a sidebar.
And a lot of times they're using the other, like the new relationship, just as that rebound relationship to heal from the last one, and they've never healed, so they bring all that trauma and drama into the new relationship, and then the cycle repeats itself 6 times.
Yeah.
See,
that's crazy.
Miss Simmons, you sound just like me. Marcus have heard this a million times, but this is what my whole book was written on. The first one is like, I never healed off of any relationship. So ultimately, I just kept rolling and snowballing. But then I would learn later in life, there's a book, I forget what it's called. I think his last name is Jensen, but it's called Love Like You Never Been Hurt, right? Which is a crazy concept, because everything you always hear is what you learned from that previous relationship.
Right.
Yeah. What you should honestly be saying is, I learned this about me. I didn't learn anything about the next person, because that's the next person isn't the last person. So ultimately, you almost got to hit Control Alt Delete, fresh start, close your eyes, scream into a pillow, and walk in there like, I'm wide open again. That's the only way you're going to give yourself a fair chance, because if not, you're looking for telltale signs. You're starting to say, oh, you're just like every other man, or yep, you just like every other woman. Before you know it, you're recycling again. But your trauma is what's carrying, like you're wearing it like the Linus blanket. You're just dragging it. You know what I'm saying? And people never let that blanket go until it's too late. And then you realize, like, man, that was probably the one. But because I wasn't healed from 2 ago, I lost the one. It becomes normal. It's like, okay, we bought a house. That was our starter house. Right? People say I had my starter marriage. Like, what does that mean? Like, I've never said that. Like, no, that was not a starter marriage.
Starter wife? Oh, Lord.
These things are completely different. Like, between my first life and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I'm saying I'm a different person. Right. Yeah. So absolutely. I wouldn't, downgrade or make them feel as if like, oh, well, you were just practice. Like, what kind of crazy thought process? This is still a human. Right? Yeah. Like, you don't make somebody feel like they were practiced. That's crazy. Your starter house is not your starter wife. Let's never say that again.
Speaking of your first wife, and now your second wife you're married to, your first wife is of European descent.
Yes,
Italiano. So
Italian
people would say, if they saw her, they would say she would say she's white. Right?
Absolutely.
So growing up, how you grew up, and see, people don't understand, like being in the military, that's not a big thing. Like, okay, people marry interracially in the military all the time.
Yeah.
You know, me being from the South and then you being from where you from, as a black man, and not just a black man, a darker skinned black man married to a white woman. What was your what did you learn about Black culture? How you did, like, what were some of the things that you went through being married outside of your race?
Okay, so I'll start with this. The first thing and the most important thing is that was never an issue in my actual immediate family. Mom, dad, sister, none of them ever. And if they did, that was behind closed doors. But they loved her. Her name's Amanda. They loved, while we were together, they loved her as a daughter, as they should, right? This is my daughter-in-law, whatever it might be, have you. But man, oh man, every woman that either I may have shown interest in, or maybe had interest in me, or maybe didn't even care about me, seemingly had something to say. This is the days of MySpace, man.
Oh, got you.
My MySpace. My MySpace was jumping. You know what I'm saying? Like, you married? How the hell you married? I can't believe you. Like, I was like, I never knew how offensive this was going to be. Like, who knew I was going to have such an impact on people's lives that I'm not saying they were not important, but for the most part, they're not very important to my day to day. But I'm like, damn, like, y'all care this much? Like, I have never looked at it like, damn, she married a white dude. She on, or dang, he married a white. Like, that's not me. So to see them act that way was super surprising. And to the point where this is okay, see, then this is when you really find stuff out. So then, of course, like I said, the marriage doesn't work. I get divorced. What do you think the Black culture can't wait to tell you? See, I told you not to marry that damn white girl like that. It was Umar before Umar. And I'm not making this up. I'm not doing this just because we live and I got an audience, but I'm trying to tell you, from females and males, that was like, yeah, that's what you get from marrying a white girl, bro. That's
crazy though. Like, people divorce all the time. Black people get divorced all the time. Man, trust me. Like, I don't.
So, but you know, to her defense, you know, like, we gave it a valiant effort, right? For everything that we were up against. So we actually officially got divorced in 2007, but we had a whole year and some change of separation. So honestly, our marriage was honestly from about 2000. Well, we got married September 2003, and I would say probably around Christmas time 05 is when we started, and then all of 06, some of 07, we were separated.
And you have a beautiful daughter.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Daughter, just an amazing athlete. Just
yeah.
That's
my baby.
I've seen her on social media.
That's my heart. Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's my heart. And so I think about a lot of things because the thing that I struggle with, very detailed in the book, was, man, this is even hard to talk about. But I had a situation in which a girlfriend, you know, we had gotten pregnant, and she decided, like, it's too much. My parents is not going to allow that to happen. And so ultimately we went and did that thing. Right. And I didn't realize, now, again, this is a woman, her body, the whole thing. Right. Though I loosely support it, I definitely never made her feel like, nope, can't do this, whatever. It's your body, do what you want. But that crushed me. So later on, when my, you know, next girlfriend, or is my wife to be, got pregnant, like, mentally, I wasn't there.
Right.
And I had, God, this is tough to say. Like, I had kind of insinuated, like, we should probably do that thing, right? Because I couldn't, like, you know how you have a feeling of you don't know what something could be. So I'm like, was I going to have a son? Was I going to have a daughter? I'll never know. So now, why am I faced with that again? So I was like trying to run away from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, not even knowing how to tell her that, but her reading between the lines, and then I felt like a complete, like, God, that's the worst thing ever. Like, I can't make a woman feel like that's what she should do. And that was a point of contention for a minute. So when I went off to basic, we were kind of like this, because that was kind of like the last things we had talked about. But we worked through it during basic and end up, you know, figuring it out. And then we decided to get married. But for a minute there, you know, like, I was like, I already did it once. Maybe we should do it again. And that's hurtful to say, because I can't see my life without my 3 kids, right? So to even think about that, again, that shows you where you are in life. I was a young man dealing with some trauma. rolling that trauma to the next relationship, and then thinking that that same answer was the right solution for this one, right? So see, that was a learning experience for myself.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm glad that we made the right choice. And like I said, my baby will be 21 this year, and I don't even know what my life would be without her. So
wow.
I'm so glad that you made that point, because I think when you think about her body, her choice, we don't really look at the men's side of it. We don't really look at the traumatic experience that y'all go through. While I'm emotional and I'm feeling all my feels and I'm doing what I'm going to do, to pause and to think about how that's going to affect you as the father. We don't think about that enough, because y'all carry the babies first. Let's just be real. We know how how it happens. So we just don't think about that enough. And I wish more people would pause and have that conversation from both sides.
So after it happened, and I tell this story pretty detailed in the first book. Like, I remember riding back and feeling sick. And as I'm feeling sick, like, I'm losing interest in her. This is where it gets kind of like crazy, because I'm like, I don't even like you anymore. Like, I don't know. It's crazy how I went through this process, but I just felt so bad. Like, I mean, monetarily, I paid for it, right? It was, nobody knew about it but me, her, and my best friend, who actually drove us up to Chicago where we had to get it done. But like, I was there for her. I held her the whole way back. But I remember looking out the window as the trees were passing. I was like, that was us at that moment. I was like, I don't have that what I had for you anymore. Because this is how I was feeling after that. So I was like, because at that time I'm young, right? Like, grandma, we still go to church. I take her to church. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hell. Like, I'm thinking all kind of crazy stuff. Like, I'm in the church. Like, look, every time the preacher speaks, talking to me, like, yeah, man, I'm out here messing up and doing crazy grown up stuff I ain't ready for. Like, I was like, oh man, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have nobody to talk to really, because my father isn't an open door like that. And he wouldn't have gave me. He would have listened, but it would have been one sided at that point. Very one way conversation. I didn't know that was coming. So I decided not to do that. And I just kind of told my mom, who's she listens and she's open, but I just never felt like I'd never heal from that. And then that led to the next and the next. And it just kept getting worse for me.
It's some total of our experiences in life. And, you know, nobody's here to judge anything, you know, but the truth is that day, a part of both of you guys died, you know, regardless of what you believe or what you think or whatever, that was still a part of both of you guys. And that's something that young people, 18, 19 years, ill-equipped to, you know, and it's saddening that you really didn't have anybody to reach out to. You really had nobody to talk to, because people will either judge you from one side or the other, you know, and either you were wrong for doing it, or you were stupid for not telling, or you were stupid for getting in the situation in the first place. Like, you can't, there's no scenario where you win, right? And so, I think that's the biggest problem. So fast forward a little bit, you and your first wife are done. And then you meet this young lady, this beautiful young lady who you're married to now. And she has a son. She has a son. So how do you? This is a hot button topic on YouTube, in certain spaces on YouTube. You know. So how do you navigate being a step parent? How did you navigate being a step parent? The young man's an adult now. But how did you first navigate that? And what were your thoughts behind marrying a woman who had a child?
Okay, so because I had dated a woman that had a child before, I was somewhat in the know of how to respect that situation, because I remember my mom telling me straight out, no matter what, that baby is always going to come before you. That's what you have chosen. You have chosen to be with a woman that has a child, and you have to understand that. So when I met my current wife and she had a child, basically initially I was kind of hands off, right? Because I was still working out the situation that, hey, I have a child and I'm divorced, and I got to navigate that over there to make sure no man thinks they need to come in and try to replace me. Though she would, remarry and have her own situation at that point, me and that guy had to understand, like, that's my baby. I understand she's going to be under your house and all these, and that comes with a certain respect. Cool. But you don't need to take this charge as if I'm not around. So I was still kind of working on that primarily. And so as I started to kind of get that condition and how I felt about that, I started to like, okay, I got a son, right? Like, I get it. It's not my biological son, but his father chose not to be in the picture at that time. I got a son, so I got to step up and be a father
Yeah.
figure to him. And so the one thing that became the stressor is the fact that, you know, you never really know how your kids look at things. So what I would find out, let's make it now 6-7 years into the marriage, is that my daughter was struggling heavily with the fact that I was full time somewhere else, part time with her, and she's watching things from a distance. And definitely when she's in person, and she's like, "Oh, well, he wasn't there to, you know, teach me how to tie my shoe, or he didn't help me learn how to ride my bike, or just all these other things." And then these kids just talking, being kids. Jazzy slightly older to him. You know, they're kind of competitive, and he's like, "Well, yeah, you know, Dad comes to all my football games and all this," and she's like, "Well,
Yeah.
you know, he ain't in none of my this or none of my that." And I don't even know these conversations because this is them just being kids. And so I started to have to like struggle with the thought of, damn, my biological child really ain't with this. I'm a step parent more than I am a biological parent in her life, because, you know, distance. At this point, I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona. She's back home in Indiana.
Right.
And that was you want to talk about a stressor? That was a stressor. Plus to the fact that love my kid to death, all of them, you know, but Ace is Ace. Right? So I would sometimes feel like, what am I missing? What am I not doing to help this boy become the young man I want him to become? Because, you know, not that he was like ever into anything crazy like drugs and sex and nonsense, but he was just not really going how I thought he would go. And ultimately, I'm looking at my daughter and I'm like, I can see myself. This is before Jordy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see myself in Ace. And again, that's no knock on that, but that was the struggle. Like, I'm like, I am giving him my all, and it's still not measuring up to what I feel like he needs, whatever that is. And where's that disconnect? And that was the struggle more than anything. Like, the acceptance part for me wasn't difficult because of who the woman is, right? Like, she never
that matters.
yeah, she never asked me to do anything like save us, or like, you know, like, I don't even know what kind of description I can give, but I never had that pressure of like, you know, like, yeah, we only go as far as you can take us. Like, she's super independent and strong, but she was like, yeah, I do want my son to have a solid, you know, father figure. And I'm never going to cripple you from doing that. But at the same token, understand, like, I'm his mom, we have a bond. And so it was kind of like a understanding there. Like, so I know there's these things come in different packages. I will say that. But my package was pretty neat. So I was not up against some of the things that I got 2 and 3. You know, I got 2 and 3 baby fathers as well, and you're dealing with, and one thing, and I don't want to air too much thing, but one of my mentors, bro, this broke my soul, because it goes to this story that we're talking about. He was an older gentleman, had a younger wife who had a crazy baby father. I mean, crazy. And I mean, again, now at this point, this is this man's wife. So he's just being protective over her. Like, hey, look, I stay out of y'all business as much as I can, but this is still my wife. This is still my house. You just not going to show up. And this man ended up killing him, bro. So basically what happened, like, the guy pulled up, him and the baby mother. They got into a little confrontation. I don't think it was physical, but he's cursing her, you know. So, you know, Al comes out. That's my mentor. He's like, hey man, you got to kick rocks with all that. First off, we already discussed this before. You know, like, you're not gonna pull up in front of my house in my neighborhood cussing this woman out, whatever y'all disagreeing on, do that like adults, but that's still my wife. Right. And he went out there to get her, because, you know, at that point she's barking back, yada yada. He like, look, just go in the house, we good. He turned his back. It was like, hey man, you gotta go. But Buddy put forward to his chest. But he died on the spot. I would never forget when I got that call. That was my first Air Force mentor. And I mean, I don't know, I'm trying not to tear up now, but I'm like, I had literally just seen him. Man had been retired. Let's give him 7 months.
Oh my God.
Living a good life, you know, like, all of his kids, they were adults. And she only had that one kid. I think the kid might have been 8. I don't know, something like that at the time. And I'm like, this man died basically in front of his house, defending his wife, who had the crazy baby daddy, over the kid situation, and it cost him his life. So way before we even had this conversation we having right now, to go to your question on how you know, these things look now and what perspective is. That's what people are not thinking about. Like, who are you inheriting? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, man, what? Like, the buddy killed him? Like, that still blows my mind. It gives me chills to think about. So, yes, I know that some of these situations are way more dire. Mine was not at all. Like, you know, I basically, like I said, I basically raised Ace from the time he was maybe 6 months to a year.
Wow. Yeah.
It was very much at the beginning. You know what I mean? So I'm blessed in that. And but yeah, I mean, he still had his own struggles with not knowing, in my opinion, who his biological father was. And I think that was giving me some of my like night sweats because I couldn't reach him. And Marcus was always telling me, man, Ace gonna be all right. I'm like, look, Marcus, he got about this. Look, he got that. Whatever's in between that's how much patience I got. Because I'm gonna lose it, man. You can't get a piece of paper through there. I ain't got no more patience. That was me, man. That was me.
Thank you for sharing your story. Because I mean, it sounds like your wife is a remarkable woman. Just the way, like you said, the woman makes the difference in that situation. Yes, and I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your friend and your mentor. My question for you, Clyde, is what advice do you have as you mentor young men? What is your advice for a young man that is maybe coming to you for advice? He wants to marry a woman that has children. What advice would you have for him?
I say, I call it my absolute value theory. So what's inside the parentheses, right? So when you're inside of those parentheses, it's just you and her. Are y'all stable enough? Whereas if you're going to come in this kid's life, she's going to give you the ability to be a father figure, or you're going to constantly get nipped at the knees. Like, well, look, you ain't they daddy, or the kids get to tell you ain't they daddy, or whatever it may have you, or then y'all end up having your own kid. And then all of a sudden that's the only kid you care about. Cause okay, this is actually mine. Now, these other two that I inherited before them, I'm kind of just writing them off. So you got to know absolutely like what the conditions are. That's between you and her. And then ultimately as a man, this is a tough one, but you have to be able to ask yourself a real question. Like, is this something that I'm really able to do before I say I do? Because to me, it's hard to go back afterward. If you start being a force in these kids' lives, you can't help but to feel attached to them. So don't cheat yourself by saying, I only, like you said, go back to the conditional things. Oh, I'm marrying her because the way she look. I'm marrying her because she can cook. I'm marrying her for a lot of things that don't have nothing to do with love for real. And then you find yourself 3, 4, 5, 10 years into something, these kids you have raised as your own, and then y'all split, and all of a sudden, like, all of that's just dissected. It's just over with. A lot of people ain't thinking about that, right? Yeah. So I know we've talked a lot about how to look at this. And I think young men really have to understand, like, at this moment, the ball is in your court. So when you make this decision, man, like, you're changing that situation, because I don't think it's superficial or anything for somebody to be like, oh, you know, well, I have kids, blah blah blah, and all of a sudden you're not interested anymore. I feel like that's fair. Like, well, wait a minute, like, okay, well, I'm not ready to be a father, number one. Let's just say that. Okay, let's just jump out of the gate. Hey, look, whoa, I ain't even ready to get married, so let alone be a father. And then number two is like, as a man and you're growing with this woman, you're going to have certain needs. And going back to what my mom taught me, these kids should, if she's a good woman and mother, always come first at that time. Yeah. Can you accept that? Yes. And if you can't, you need to hit the road, bro. Because you say it and then you realize, like, oh, well, you can't get no babysitter tonight. Like, nah, it ain't gonna happen. You're like, like, it'd be something as simple as that, and then you start losing interest because she has to take care of her responsibilities, and you like, man, I'm trying to look. I want to see that movie. I want to go do XYZ. Like, you sure you can't? And then all of a sudden, you start finding yourself like, I can't do this no more.
Become resentful.
Yeah, exactly. Become resentful.
I think this, like, you hear a lot going back and forth. I try to be as practical as I can when it comes to certain things. And what I always tell people, this is what I told my sons. My sons are about to be 22 and 20, if you can believe that. Man, and they don't have children. And I say, look, I don't advocate, if you don't have children, I don't advocate for you to date a woman with children, seriously, or marry a woman that has children, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You just don't. you know, when you got married, you had a child already. You had been up at night walking the floor with that baby. You had been get the diaper bag ready, keys, wallet, diaper bag, bottle. You know, the checklist you run in your head. So when you married your current wife and Ace was there, you knew what you were getting yourself into. So I would never tell a young man that doesn't have kids to get himself in a situation like that. And I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm saying you are setting yourself that the power dynamic is already going to be off because it's going to be you and her. I mean, the baby and her against you, and you're going to lose every time. You're going to lose every time. And if you're not a father, you don't understand why that is. You're gonna build resentment, like you said. I want to go see this movie. Let's go take a trip. You can't jump up and go to Jamaica for the weekend because you got this knucklehead over here.
Facts.
You're never gonna have your wife to yourself. So I tell young man, look, I would steer away from women that have children if you're not ready for that. And most young men are ill-equipped. If you don't have children, you just don't know.
You don't know.
You know, and I got to make all the mistakes with my kids. I got to make every mistake. They fell off the couch, they did. I didn't have to answer to nobody, I didn't have to answer to anybody. This young man, let's say I got married at 22. How old were you when your first marriage?
21.
21. We're on the same age. Wasn't nobody breathing down my neck, when my baby fell off the couch. It was like, hey, you fell off the couch, you made it rubber, you'll be all right. I didn't have to answer to his father. I didn't have to answer to his father's family. I didn't have to answer to the grandma of you know what I'm saying? I didn't have to deal with any of that. And that's the part, like the second and third order effects, people don't understand. And so that's why I tell young men, like, if you don't have kids, man, don't you're probably not ready for that.
Yeah.
That level,
And you just hit on it too, because we didn't even say that, but like what is the real life relationship between the mother and the father? Because going back to what happened to my buddy, right? Like, am I gonna one day be in somebody's crosshairs because they mad at me? So, like, that's the one thing that young fellas probably don't even consider because it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? Until it's not. And then you're trying to take on their problems, like, well, he ain't paying child support. All of a sudden, you think you got to buck up or something like, oh, well, you gonna pay her child support? Like, who are you? Right? Like, and then all of a sudden, you in some kind of smoke because you try to tell him how to, even though he rightfully should be taking care of his kids, but like you jump in as boyfriend for however long, and you trying to tell this man what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
you're not ready for that. You're not ready for that.
Consider, and I love your approach to it. I love your approach, and I never would advocate for men not to date a single parent because there's so many different parameters around it. Why that woman is what she is. I would just say that's my number one kind of caution to young men is like, if you don't have kids, man, you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Now, if you got a kid or two and you know what it's about, then go right ahead. I don't have no problem. I think stepfathers are great. I think they're needed, especially in the Black community. I've been fortunate enough to all my kids are with this beautiful lady right here, and that's it. And I ain't having no more, and that's it. I ain't got no kids nowhere else. I know that for a fact. And so I understand that things happen and life happens, but I don't think young men do this as a favor by jumping into relationships with women that have children. If you don't have them, you just don't know, brother. That's just me.
Some people what, real quick on that too, Marcus, is this the thing too? Like, you didn't raise two boys, right? And they seen how you were as a man and how you was as a husband and a father. And what you don't want them to do, whoa, man, I mean this with everything. You don't want them to take all of that knowledge that they got and walk into a situation where they have to inherit children, and that becomes something that they don't do well because the relationship doesn't work and they forget how they were raised. And now they're damaged. And when it's time to meet the one for them and, okay, like, are we going to start our family together? All this other stuff. They still got the trauma now from when I was trying to be something more than maybe what was asked of me. I kind of went through that with that girlfriend that had the baby at a super young age. I'm doing more than asked for me, and I'm not ready for that. And I get humbled. And then all of a sudden, when it's time for me to show up and do what I'm supposed to, I still got my trauma, and I'm not the best husband or father or whatever because I'm thinking about what happened to me before. It's a lot of stuff that can go with that, man.
Oh,
yes, dropping that is absolutely
so
the thought process behind it.
I think as a society, we do a really poor job of. I'm a huge male advocate, and there's too much nonsense going on where we're always one upping and big up in the girls or the females. And I get it. I'm a woman. I understand. But we never see the other side of it. And I can't tell you how many people we coach that they were in a relationship with, the man was in the relationship with a woman. The woman had children. He became stepdad, maybe just boyfriend, but you know, he was in the child's life. He was a father figure, is attached to the child. The relationship, they were together a few years, it goes south, and then cut and dry. And then he's still here with all these emotions. He still has that attachment to that child, and the child is gone. Or the woman gets in a bind and she's like, well, hey, I still need you to kind of help out from time to time. He acting up in school. You ain't even got his last name. Like but there's still that trauma that's there, and there's having to deal with that. But we don't talk about that enough. It's always on, well, the woman's this. And again, I don't bash women. I love women, but I also hold women accountable. So that's why I like that we're having this rounded discussion on the other side, because y'all go through stuff too. You're humans.
Yes. Absolutely.
You don't know how much you're hurting until you really speak on it. So those things that I feel like, well, again, like I said, if I'm going to be with you, I have to accept that you have the kids, but you also have to accept that this is a new experience for me. Absolutely. And when I struggle, is that something I can tell you, or is it just like, well, you know, I already had kids, so you know what I mean? And like, I think a lot of young brothers run up against that wall. Well, like, why are you acting like this is a problem? Like, you knew I had kids and this and that. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's fine. But hey, I'm struggling because your kid is acting crazy toward me. Like, let's walk through this. You know what I mean? Well, you know, his daddy is this and this, and nobody asked you to be his daddy. Like, see? Here we go. Throw the fire up. Throw the fire up.
That happens. And that's what I love about Clyde, and because we could talk about this kind of stuff without him getting into his feelings and emotions. And I mean, conversations are nuanced, man. And it's like the theme for your podcast, let conversation influence you. Facts. That is what it is. I mean, you have to understand that everything's nuanced. Nothing's really black and white, especially when it comes to relationships, emotions, love, and all that. Nothing's ever really black and white.
You're going to be retiring soon. You've been doing an amazing job serving our country. Thank you for that, by the way.
Thank you.
Amazing job.
So tell us, how has your journey been as a military veteran, but a Black military veteran? What's your journey been like?
Well, you know what? In all honesty, I have been blessed with some amazing supervisors over the years, in which a lot of times, outside of understanding, yes, I'm a Black man, I was not in too many situations. I was like, man, I'm a Black man, if you know what I mean. Like, so that's, you know, I've heard stories from my uncles. They are, you know, Vietnam vets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
whole different.
It's a whole different time. I'm not saying that the military still doesn't have its pockets, but it wasn't like it was in the 60s, right? So I say that to say, for me, honestly, the one thing that I have centrally focused on is when I have the opportunity now as a leader. So starting when I became an NCO, I was like, I got to get more of us to think more than what we're doing right now. Because at that time when I was on the flight line, this is what we were doing. You go to work, you come home, you drink, you think about the weekend, and you recycle. You blow your money on cars, motorcycles, tennis shoes, go to the club. Like the actual, hey, I'm in the military, I got a career, I'm stacking some money, let me go to school for free because they can do that. Like, that was like, who's doing that? That's boring. That's crazy. Like, I'm having a good time traveling, TDY, see the world. And I wanted to make a absolute impact, right? So some of the things I do now, I'm gonna fast forward. Now I'm a senior master sergeant. Like, I look the way I look for a reason. I got hair bumps under here, but I wanted everybody to understand, like, be unapologetically you, to steal Marcus's words. So if they could see a senior master sergeant that wears his hair high, I'm in standards based off of my condition. But if they could see me looking myself, looking my part, then I felt like that was going to give them confidence to be who they were. So it's very important for me to come to work, not to be the one that sticks out in the flight meetings because I'm the guy that's all the rank and got the facial hair. But it's like, no, conditionally, I need this. If I was shaving, I would have all kind of crazy marks on my face. And I'm not about to tear my face up for nobody. I'm too pretty for that. Marcus can tell you otherwise. You know what it is. In fact, man, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I want the young brothers, honestly, to be like, hey, look, I don't care where you're from. I'm not telling you to leave that in the past, but you chose to do this for a reason. So what you're not going to do under my watch is come here and act a fool. That's what you're not going to do. I don't care if you was the biggest fool that there was when you decided to join the military and ultimately you was going to meet me. I'm going to get that out of you because I don't want you to waste your time and your potential and get sent right back to being a fool. So
Yep.
at least the time I got you, I'm trying to condition you to be somebody better than who you were, because we all can stand to be better. We all come from rough spots. And the first thing, man, I remember when I was young, everybody, man, I'm from Detroit, man, I'm from Indianapolis. I'm like, who cares, bro? Like, did that make you a better fighter? Like, why are we saying that? Everybody's so prideful, like, man, you don't know me, man, I'm from LA. Bro, listen. Ain't got nothing to do with what we trying to do here.
Right here.
Right?
Yep.
We all, we all wearing Smurf blue. So let's just get with the program.
We just a number. That's what we
Exactly. So yeah, I want the young fellas, you know what I mean, to understand that. So when I think about my growth, it's like I always found a really solid mentor, some white, some black. But ultimately, when I connected with brothers, like they all looked at me like, man, you got potential. Let me pour into you.
Yeah.
So I try to pour into all. I mean, when I first met Marcus, at that point in my career, I'm at 14 years, like pretty experienced. I'm a master sergeant, young master sergeant, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so what he told me straight out the gate, he's like, listen, man, don't let this place break you. I was like, damn, what is that? It's cryptic as hell. but what he was saying is like, look, you got a good heart, you're a good person, and this place will break you down. And I appreciated that, because over the years I started seeing like, man, I see how boys go from like like they was up here and they got here like, hey, look, man, all I do is eat tacos and drink. I didn't want to be that guy. So I appreciate Marcus like giving me that, like, hey, look, man, I got you. And I was like, I got you. And I remember the first thing that we kind of did with each other, this is what really grew our friendship and our bond. This man, in the most humble man-to-man conversation, he was like, look, Ollie, I don't know what's been going on, man, but the one thing I would say is, if you come in here and you hear my story, hear my story. And so me hearing this story about him not being able to get over the finish line when it's coming to like becoming like getting his promotion. That's the first thing I was like, deployed or not, that's what we're going to see through. Too many people have been selling him wolf tickets. I heard how great he is as a person. He'd have been through it all. I was like, that's the least we can do. And I remember fighting tooth and nail until we moved that needle. And I think at that point he was like, okay, I can ride for the young bro. And like I had earned his respect, and he definitely had mine. And then we've been like this since then. So I feel like showing each other, this is another thing I learned as a black man, showing each other your absolute truth and value to one another will help you grow together. Because I didn't have some brothers in the military that I don't mess with, just because we was opposites. But then I had brothers like, man, I'll do anything for him. He'll do everything for me. But that's because we stuck together. So I feel like that's important too. Like when you find that person, whether y'all PCS or go different places, stay locked in. And even when I was gone, still texting Marcus, still asking to be on the podcast. We still talking, and here we are. So, I mean, it's full circle now.
I love that.
And it has been. This has been an awesome ride. And it's just been a just honor and a pleasure just to serve beside you, just to kind of see this and the newer. I'm from an older version of the Air Force, but not quite the older version. Still like an older, like pre-September 11th. Quite a bit, and it's good to see that those throwbacks come through. And you're definitely a throwback to the old school senior NCO. That he would die for you, but he also put his boot up your butt in the most loving way possible. In those days, it's hard to sit back and kind of, now that I'm a civilian and I'm still around it every day, sometimes you sit back and you're like, this isn't the Air Force I remember. And then you have somebody like you come along, I'm like, that's what I joined all those years ago. I appreciate that personality type, that guy. That's the guy right there. That's what I remember. But the problem is so sad that y'all are few and far between these days. The game is changing. And that's okay. Things do change. Change is good, but sometimes you need a little throwback every once in a while.
Yeah, it's who raised you, man. And Stuart Proctor, Big Al, rest in peace. He helped raise me. My buddy Mike, when I first cross-trained Mike Wilburn, he helped. And of course, like, you were the fourth one. It's like, all right, look, they didn't put in all this work. Now, what does it actually mean? And so when I became a flight chief for the first time and so many personalities to manage, like I needed that next mentor. And that was you. And I remember like locking in. And at that point, like I always felt like I didn't want to be a burden because I knew how much the young kids needed out of you. Like, I mean, you everybody big bro and sometime father figure and everybody. I'm like, damn, I'm an old wily vet, but I'm trying to get a little bit. What can I steal off the cherry cart? Let me see if you got any room for me. Like, hold on, let me get a question or two in. You know what I mean?
Always room, man.
I appreciate that you gave me my time, man. And for that, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna always be grateful. But it's like that's really how I looked at it. And I was like, man, I don't know what I don't know. And you helped me navigate that. Because that was the first time I'd ever been in front of that many folks, you know, almost a flight of 21, 22. And I'm like, they all looking at me for answers. I'm like, oh shit, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. But yeah, you were definitely there helping me see that through, man. So I appreciate that. So again, mentors come and they never go. That's the way I see it. They always kind of stay around and they all have value and purpose. And even though I've lost one, I still remember our conversations too, man. So I appreciate the four of y'all. For real, you know, like my grandfather, my father, those are my other mentors, but my absolute mentors in the military this whole way has been you four, man. So I appreciate y'all.
Man,
that's awesome.
It's like I see it like Yoda, you know, we're both sci-fi. It's like, you know, I'm there, I'm always watching. Yeah. I'm there when you need me. I'll appear out of nowhere and then I go back. You know, like let you do your thing, give you a little wisdom, and then go back. And then it's like, but I'm always there, I'm always watching, you know, and I think that's part of that. That's that father in me and the father in you, and I see how you are with our guys, and just it's an amazing thing. And it's as to see it now coming to the end. Yeah, you know, you're about to do your last dance.
Hey, and I tell you all the time, man, because when you told me, he's like, look, you know, the wife is stepping away from the kids or whatever. Like, I would always be on you, like, look, man, you in the same space in a different place. You ain't got time for nobody. Man, like, he started taking off. I said, wait, Marcus ain't at work? He's like, nah, Marcus took off. I said, what? Marcus will never take off unless it's that time of the year where he let everybody know I got my 2 weeks. You know what I mean? But I started seeing Marcus take a random Monday off. I was like, hold on, cuz. He's starting to shut it down a little bit.
It was a long transformation for him to do that. It took a lot for him to do that. I think it was several of our conversations where I had to give him that tough love. Like, man, you died your death today.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll eat chicken, they'll cry, and then you know, Monday somebody else in your
advertising my job, you know.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
You gotta take care of yourself.
You do, man. You do.
Well, we're coming to the end, Clyde. Before we do, I definitely want to pub your books, and I want to just kind of talk about them real quick.
Okay.
I read both of them. Amazing books, man. Like to the point I had my oldest son read your first book. And he's getting through it, because it was just, to me, I felt you know, as a young man and going through all those emotions and not really knowing what to do with them. I really got something from it. I loved it, and I just want you to kind of tell the listeners, like, what was your motivation for your first book and for going back and pretty much doing the sequel? Would you call your second book a sequel?
Yeah, because there was more to say, but then a different lane. But I would say, honestly, the truth is, one day you get sat down by something, right? I don't know what that something is, but for me, my something was when I lost one of my best friends, motorcycle crash, and I went through my whole depression. And what sat me down in life was I'm just dragging myself through, and where's my pain really originating from? So it took me a long time to really kind of just like sit on all the thoughts I had for years and kind of tell a story. And I wanted to do that in the most simplest form. So I chose a memoir, sort of like essays, to kind of tell each story in its own different light, because the goal was to show my growth. So you look at me when I'm a child, basically all the way up until I'm a grown man and I'm married for the second time, and everything in between. And so the motivation was you can live with trauma each and every day. And like you said, you carry it close to the vest. Like, this is all I got, until you're unafraid to let it. So you to the point where you're unafraid to let it go, because you feel like, what am I without this? Right? Victimized, right? Everybody wants to feel like I got a story and this is mine. Yeah. Well, I didn't want it to be, you know, negative anymore. I wanted my story to be more so my testimony. I'm like, look, man, I know that people suffer and go through things, but this is my story. And hopefully, if you're a young fella or old fella or anybody else, or a young woman or old woman, like, you read these stories, you maybe have a little joke here, you take it for what it's worth, but then you reflect on your life and see, like, what is my story? What I need to get off my chest. Because how long am I going to drag myself through life talking about some stuff that happened to me 20 years ago and letting it actually drive my life? That was my problem.
Wow, yeah.
My trauma was still driving my life at some point 20 years later. And I'm like, you gotta at some point, not that you cut ties to the point you don't forget this, but you realize like this no longer has dominion over me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't just, the people that say when they're 25, 26 years old, like, but this is the way I am. That's the type of thing that'll lead you to a life you don't want to live, because you're not looking to ever change. You're not looking to ever evolve. You're not looking to ever address anything. You just let everything conditionally mold you, and this is what I am. It's like clay.
Yeah.
That's what I was. I was an unmoldable ball of clay. I had all the answers to everything. I had all my justifications and reasons for everything. And I would say I'm a Taurus on top of that. You know what I mean? And so this is the way I am. And like, I realized how long I BS'd myself. I BS'd people that I cared about. I BS'd life because I'm still just holding on to stuff. And so that was the motivation to write about that, to release that. And then the second wave of that was to then dive further deeper and talk about my interpersonal relationships with family, friends, and other traumas that had happened to me that I didn't realize affected me the way they did. Like losing people, like close people, cousins, not to death, but like all of a sudden after 10 years of growing up together, we literally don't say words to each other. Like, not because of like bad blood, it's just
life.
We don't talk no more.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how that affected every relationship ever, because here I am gravitating to people. I really need people to be close to me, come close to me, to only get hurt by them because I don't really need them close to me. But I feel like I've never felt nothing since I was a kid. So I'll let anybody into my life, right? And then they take from me, they do things to me emotionally or whatever. And then I just reset and do it again. Because I never processed like, why are me and my 5 cousins, like we were like this, inseparable, every summer, every day, all things, to like not even knowing each other's kids' names. Not having anything. That's what that first story is in the second book. And I'm like, my grandparents didn't raise us like this, and they would be absolutely upset to know this is who we are now. So that's really what happened with those both books. So
wow.
Well, I must admit I have not read your books yet, but they are on my to-do list. I am absolutely inspired to read them. I know Marcus has raved about them. And I think anyone that's courageous enough to tell their story, my hat off to you for doing that, because I know it takes a lot to be able to open up and be vulnerable and share your story. So thank you for all of the people that you're helping just by the words that you wrote on the page. So I can't wait to read it. So hopefully next time we interview, I'll be done.
I love your writing style. I've read, I'm a very well-read man.
Absolutely.
I have very few writers have your style of writing. It's very unique. It's very unique style. And so I highly recommend it. And I just want to take give you the floor for a few minutes to plug your podcast. Tell us where we can get your books from. I'm going to put the links in the description for Amazon for your books. I'm going to do all that for you, but just plug away, man, because you're doing some great things out here in these social media streets. I just want to hear what I get to hear all the time.
Okay.
So, floor is yours, brother.
All right, man. So first I'll say I like to give love to my mentor, Dr. Stuart Proctor. He and I started this podcasting thing in 2017 in November. And since then, he and I have decided to, and not in a bad way, but like life just started lifing. And so CO and the Doctor is where we started. And then that has now transitioned to me as a personal podcast, as you see it down there, Complicatedly Misunderstood podcast. Now, people laugh at the name, but I'll tell you why. So my mom has always said I'm complicated from probably the day I was born. And so the reason why I have this approach is because I'm not a person that usually hears the first thing and I run with it. A lot of things to me, though simple, are very complicated because my mind won't allow me to process it just so like simplistically. So I got to work through it. Hence the whole let conversation influence you. So ultimately what I bring on that podcast is thoughts, feelings, emotions, or conversations I've had where I've like, you know what? I might have felt that way, but now I don't. Or this happened and this is wild and everybody agrees on this side, but I'm on this side of the fence. So ultimately that's what that podcast is. It's just me going through my wild thoughts about whatever they are. I also do a podcast, and that podcast is only audio, so it can be found on Apple Music, which Marcus is a subscriber to them Droid people. So Spotify too. And basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find it, but those are probably the main two. Then I do another podcast called the Sick Podcast Amble Show, which is a Colts, Indianapolis Colts podcast, which I do with two of my buddies. And that one's been pretty cool. Got a sponsorship. We've been able to do some Super Bowl coverage, some crazy stuff over there.
Yeah, he was the week of Super Bowl. He was there taking pictures with people. For the first time in a long time, I was hating. I'm not a hater, but I was hating. I'm not even gonna lie.
I was in some wild spaces, man. Like I'm taking pictures with Spice Adams 1 second.
Man.
I'm talking to Dr. Oz the next. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I don't even know what's going on right now. So that's been a blessing. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you how blessed I've been. And that started with me doing a podcast with my brother-in-law and one of my buddies. It was called the Indie Boys. And then that kind of got downgraded. Life happens. And then I got picked up by these guys and we've been off and running. So that's pretty awesome. And then when it comes to the books, both of my books self-published. So I want to give a shout out to now I'm on this. What's her name? Slipping my name. Yes, D.H. Bonner. Ma'am, I am so sorry. But once I seen the work that you did with Marcus's book and you were helping him on the first one, he gave me the info. I hit her up. We worked through it all. And so she self-published them. And they're both on Amazon. The first one's called Memoirs from Within, and then the second one's called More from Within. Both are just real life, stories of me.
I'm a subscriber.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I really enjoy your takes. It's always something quirky and funny because I'm like, where does he get this from?
I don't know, man. It'd be wild. I want to give y'all love too, man, because I remember when Marcus was talking to me when y'all very first started this thing. Say, look, man, we're gonna start small. That's what we want to do, and then to fast forward time, almost as if we snapped our fingers. Look where you guys are. You got merch. You got a whole setup. You got, man. Look, I don't even know. Every day y'all doing something different and something more, and you're pushing your brand. And I see that y'all are bought in. Like y'all are bought it because for a long time you said y'all talked about doing this and then y'all were kind of like, not yet. So you take the leap and then all of a sudden you're like, damn, we don't even got a parachute. we just jumped off the cliff and we just gonna let it roll. And I love to see y'all constantly adding. Just keep adding to it. Just keep growing the brand, man. Just keep believing in you. Your YouTube followers are gonna grow. Your audio listeners are gonna grow. You're gonna find the right sponsorship. All of it. I believe in this, man. Y'all got something positive from marriage counselors and helping people to now taking the world on by storm and breaking down everything y'all break down, and that's just having this conversation because you know what the truth is. There's so much toxicity in the male-female relationship. So much toxicity in Black culture. And the fact that we can talk about that in a positive light and give people something positive to actually focus on is what y'all are doing. And so I appreciate y'all putting out that type of content because it's too much inward content out here, if you know
And what we're so excited about the colloquy is because we have awesome people on here, such as yourself.
Thank you.
And our audience now gets to hear your perspective, and our audience gets to figure out where you're at, and they can, definitely subscribe to what you're doing. But I just love that you were able to speak to a perspective that we can't. We've not lived the step parent space or divorce or any of that, but you were able to articulate that so well. And I know that our listeners will definitely find great value by what you shared. So thank you for being on our podcast. And you're a regular now, so
about anything. Marcus knows things that turn me up. So when it's time to turn me up, let me go. I'm ready.
It will not be the last time, brother. Well, thank you so much. Tell Mama we said hello.
Okay,
and hopefully next time Mrs. will be able to be on the show. We would love to meet her.
She's such a sweetheart.
So shy, man. I've been podcasting for 7 years. She's done 3. So good luck with that. But we'll try.
Well, maybe we'll have her just say hi real quick.
Okay. We'll do that. We'll try to do that.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Love you, man.
Okay,
and
love you too,
we gonna sign off, man. All right.
All right, man. Appreciate you so much, Marshall.
Nice to meet you.
All right.